Welcome, I'm Ken Cameron from Music Tech Student. In today's session we're going to look at completing Component 2 technology-based composition and specifically the logbook and what to expect when you are completing the logbook. So this is a fairly simple process. It shouldn't take too long to get through this one. Actually, it's not a particularly hard logbook. If you like the format for these videos and you want to see more, obviously give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Your support is very much necessary. Also give us some comments as well. If there's anything you want us to make a video on, if there's anything that I missed or anything you want to know, just give us a comment and we'll either reply to the comments or we'll make some more videos. So let's get started. So the Component 2 logbook, the first thing is just make sure you follow the instructions. So fill in your candidate number and center and then just follow the instructions. So the logbook and the piece of work must be presented together to the examiner. You have to submit your project in the digital format that's detailed in the administrative support guide. This can be found on the Pearson website. Now, this can change every year. So this year you are expected to hand in a CD, plus you're expected to hand in your work, your actual project files as well. But just check that as well, because that does change from year to year. That will get published. It's normally published really early, so you can check it well in advance. So before you send off your work, before you start preparing all this stuff, just check the administrative support guide just to make sure you're doing it right. So the next thing is each candidate must be presented separately and must be clearly marked with the reference paper, the centre number, candidate's name and candidate's number. And all centres must retain a backup. And one thing I get my students to do is finish this really early in May, so it gives me enough time to back up all their work onto a CD, check it all, give it an estimated grade, and just make sure everything is right. The closer you leave this to the 15th of May deadline, the harder it is for your teacher to get it right. So I would always say the first week of May, get it handed in. It gives me just over a week to make sure everything is okay and works just fine. And all work must be to the examiner by the 15th of May. So the total marks for this component are 60. You must use a black ink or ballpoint pen. And you must use all the sections provided. There may be more space. You are not allowed to attach any additional material. The sections in this booklet ask for the information which is essential for the examiner to assess your mark. There's no grades for this booklet, but if you don't fill it in really well, you won't get the grades that you expect either. So make sure you spend enough time on this and you detail it and you get everything in there that you absolutely need. So in this next section, then you have to give the brief chosen and then the title of your composition, so whether it's brief 2 and whatever the title of that particular brief is. And then you have to fill in these sections. So the next sections are very clear about what they want. So this particular one, you have a whole bunch of boxes. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different grid areas where you can fill in information relating to the synthesis that you've done. And what they're looking for is higher knowledge of synthesis to make sure that you understand how you've adjusted the parameters, how you've manipulated the synthesis to achieve your end result. So give the name of the track here and then reference the things that you've done within that track. If it's necessary and if it's right, you can actually specify a point in time when you've done something. So you should be looking at how you've designed the sound. You won't get any marks for a particular instrument if you haven't manipulated it. So if you've just used a preset, you won't get any marks for that. Going into the actual synthesizer, manipulating it, changing things, automating it, using filters, LFOs, envelopes, and real-time controls. Those are all the things that you need to evidence in this. And I would definitely say to my students, make sure that you've used at least all of these areas at least once in order to get those full marks. And be very specific about what you did as well. There's not a massive reason to go into massive amount of detail, so you do just need to reference the point that you've actually made, how you've used it, where you've used it, and that should suffice in this. And if you want to make 2 or 3 points per instrument, that's absolutely fine. And there's enough boxes here that you can detail pretty much everything that you've done with your synthesis. So synthesis is a really important area for this component. Then the next one is sampling. It's the same here. When you're using sampling, you want to show how you've used the sampling. So it says here, use short audio files to develop new sonic elements. Pitch mapping, cutting, trimming and looping. You're not allowed to provide any screenshots for this, so you're not allowed to attach any additional information. So you have to reference it very specifically about what you've what you've done and any of the things that you've made. So any of the kind of pitch mapping that you've done, any of the trimming, looping that you've completed that will be significant to the grades of your piece. And once again, you can reference where this goes, or so you can give it a place in time when you've done that if necessary. And once again, you get lots of different spaces to fill in every single sampled instrument. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces again to fill in all this information. So there's absolutely plenty there for you to do. The next one is creative effects and processing, and it wants to see how you've modified the sound using effects and using different kinds of processing. And once again, if you've used automation for that, you can specify the particular point in time. You can specify the parameters that you're using and why they're successful. And that is it. So you've got 3 main areas you need to identify: creative effects, sampling, and synthesis. So be very specific. And I always get my students to fill this in, or at least roughly fill this in the digital version as they go. It does make filling this in a lot easier later on if you've actually done it as you go, rather than trying to lump it all together at the end and remember how you've completed that. So then finally, in the absolute final part for this, is just the teacher's declaration and the candidate's signature. So if you don't fill this part in, you might won't get graded, and it may hold up the process. And I believe there are even penalties for this now, so just be very, very careful about that. If you go on to the next pages, this is the examiner's report, but it does tell you what they're looking for in each of these grids. So if you're only showing a limited use of synthesis techniques, you're not going to get higher than this level 1. So it's not a bad option just to check this examiner's report and just see the kind of information they're after. And they do detail it for every single area. So, have a look at that as well. That pretty much brings me to the close of this particular video. I hope everything goes well. I hope that you get this filled in on time. Give your teacher enough time to mark it so they don't stress out over this as well. I mean, that's really useful that they get this in plenty of time so that they can spend the time they need to actually mark it. And good luck with your coursework, good luck with your exam, and I'll see you in the next video.